Well, hi there, welcome to the Obi-Throne Alliance. If you can, like and subscribe. Drop a comment down about your thoughts of the video. Let's discuss about Loki Episode 2, The Variant. And joining me for that is Luke.
Hey.
So let's start off with a recap of the episode where it starts from 1985.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a, I guess I wouldn't say flashback because they can go between time. But yeah, they go to a Renaissance fair and we see the Minutemen, the soldiers that work for the TVA, going to investigate the variant, and they kind of know the variant's going to be coming, but they believe they're prepared. And then, as the variant has been doing previously, he's been killing off these Minutemen. And who do we see? We see one of the characters, and we're introduced to a new female character who we've seen before in a show we've talked about.
Yeah, it was surprising. I kind of recognised her, and then you said she was in Utopia, and then it kind of clicked, yeah.
Yeah, when she first came on, I thought, I know who that is, who is it? And I thought about it for a little bit, and then it clicked. It was Jessica Rabbit from Utopia, but I think that's probably the last of her we'll see in the show, so it's just a small role for her after being somewhat of a main character in a previous show. So what happens with her and the variant?
Basically, the variant takes her mind, takes her over, and then she kind of loses control, and then she takes on her fellow comrades and kind of beats them up, and then the variant takes her as a hostage.
Yeah, and that's kind of end scene for that one. And then
she does appear again later on.
And then it moves forward to, we get to see our main character, Loki. He's kind of getting suited up. You can see he's now an investigator, and he's getting ready to help Mobius to do some investigating on the variant and catch the other Loki that's going on.
Yeah, we also get to see him. He was on Morbius' desk, and we also get to see him look at jet ski pictures, and we also get to see him talk to the kind of the communicator little thing that he was talking to at the start of the episode. So that was your thoughts about that scene?
Yeah, so you're talking about we see Mobius talking. Sorry, not Mobius. We see
Loki.
Yeah, I'll cut it out. Yeah, so we're talking about Loki dealing with this holographic style clock, which is it looks like he's doing some kind of like training, like modules that you do at work or at like school, and they're trying to teach him how the TVA works.
Yeah.
And that was one of the scenes that was funny. He asked the clock, and he said, "Oh, are you real or are you like fake?" And then the clock's like, "Oh, I don't really know." But then he tries to hurt the clock, and the clock's dodging.
Go back. The clock goes back to the computer.
Yeah. So you see him doing his modules, and then he's like kind of now an investigator, and then they had the scene, they give him a jacket. Like he's got his cool jacket, but when he turns around it says variant on there. So everyone knows that he's the variant Loki. So he's very much still a prisoner.
Yeah.
And then they are getting ready to go out to work.
Different versions of Loki.
Oh yes, that's right. They show, I don't know if they're necessarily different versions, but they're showing that they're explaining how a variant can take different forms, and I think they give examples of what Loki's could look like or different powers they could have, and to be prepared for anything.
And then Loki gives the speech about how his powers work and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he's quite clever and explains how that's different. Like ones where you take someone else's form, and then the others where you, I know, and they make a funny joke like, "Okay, Professor Loki," and then. Yeah, the show does add a good little amount of humour. And then from there, do they go out into the field? Or?
They go to 1985.
Yeah, that's right. They go and investigate it, and Loki kind of says, "Oh, well, the variant's doing this, and I would know because I'm part of the variant, and I don't know, tries to come up with some scheme basically saying like, oh, the only way to fix this is you're going to introduce me to the time gods.
That's kind of the theme of the episode. He wants to speak to the time keepers, and Morbius kind of sees through it.
Yeah, Morbius.
He hadn't though, he almost believed it.
Yeah, Morbius kind of like laughs it off and is like, yeah, I know what you're trying to do, Loki, and that's not going to happen. Then what, they go back to the TVA, and Morbius goes and chats to like the judge character that sentenced Loki, or was going to, but then Morbius stepped in, and there seems like there's a bit of a love interest between that character and Morbius.
Yeah.
And she kind of says, you know what, you've I don't really like what you're doing, like the fact you're involving Loki, like this isn't a smart idea, and he continues to argue that Loki's going to be helpful. And meanwhile, Loki's off. What's Loki doing? What else is happening?
Sitting outside.
Oh, that's right. But then, sorry, I'm getting confused with the next scene. So then after that, Loki goes and does his own research.
Yeah. Kind of researches. Well, they kind of do their own work, and then Loki researches. Basically, Morbius asks the judge, he would be helpful because, he's a trickster. We need to get someone that thinks like Loki. And then the judge is like, well, it's on your head. And then they basically leave the room, and that's when we get the scene that Morbius says you're like a child. And
yeah, I forgot about that scene. And then what, Loki decides to do some research of his own. He goes down to wherever they keep the files, and he asks the lady there if he can have, he wants to know if he can have the files to the beginning of time, and she says it's classified. And then he asks for the files pertaining to the end of time, and she said that's classified. And then he goes, oh, well, what files can I have? And then he ends up just getting the case file for the variant that they're searching, and his own files, so which I thought was pretty funny. After all the different options, the only thing he was allowed was something so small. And then is that when he comes up with his idea? He thinks he susses out that how the variant's hiding in disguise.
Yeah, he reads through it, and then he discovers Ragnarok, and then he discovers the whole apocalypse theory.
Yeah, that he believes that if a variant hides where an apocalypse or something inevitably bad was going to happen, that you can hide there because anything you do doesn't make a difference. So if you went and if you went and started a fire in the middle of an earthquake, it wouldn't change the future because the earthquake's going to overpower the fire. Like it's not, like it wouldn't be noticed. So he goes and explains that to Mobius, and what's the scene we're faced with there?
I really like the scene because it's such a simple scene, but it's done in a clever way because Morbius is just having his lunch, and then Loki does it in such a enthusiastic way with how he does it with the salt and pepper, and then the drink's empty, and then he's like, Hulk gets smashed. I destroy the throne, and then Morbius is like, don't do that.
Yeah, so he's trying to describe and use the metaphor that
you can still do something.
Yeah, if you do something during like an apocalypse, for instance, no one will notice that you're there anyway. You won't create any of the variant frequencies they talk about. So he has the salad, and he's putting salt, and he's tipping water on it, and he's ruining his salad, and just shows that it doesn't make a difference in the end if it just gets smashed.
Yeah.
And he says, we need to go somewhere where I can test this theory, like take me to Ragnarok. And he's like, no, I'm not going to take you to Ragnarok.
You're just going to backstab me. And then we have this conversation about, I would never do that. And then Morbius is like, well, I've been studying you for most of the time. And then it's like, I can change. I'd never do it again.
Yeah, and we actually see that in the trailer too. We hear that scene, and then we finally get to see what it was in context to. So then eventually Mobius agrees, and they go to Pompeii, which was like a famous volcanic eruption that happened in the past. And so they go there, and he kind of shows how no matter what he says, it wasn't varying the timeline.
Yeah.
And Mobius was able to check that with whatever machine he has. And he's yelling out to the people like, "Oh, do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. The volcano's gonna erupt." They're like, "What do you mean?" And then it erupts. And he's like, "See, look, it didn't make a difference."
Well, Morbius was like, "Oh, make some bird noises or something."
Yeah, yeah. So no matter what, it just proves that no matter what he did, the volcano was going to erupt inevitably, and it was going to wipe everyone out.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there is things in the timeline you could change. Like if he went early enough before a disaster happened and warned everyone and the town moved, then that would change the timeline.
Yeah.
But he was showing the example that a variant can hide if it's around about the time of a disaster.
Yeah.
So we see that, and
they go back to the judge, and then Morbius explains about this theory, and then they kind of split the paperwork. And then Loki finds where the variant could be, because Owen Wilson, Morbius kind of remembers about the chewing gum they got previously.
Yeah, he left the chewing gum to the young boy when they went back to the 1300s or something, or 1800s in France. And I assumed the chewing gum was from like the 1960s or 70s because it kind of looked old school. But apparently it wasn't. It's futuristic. And so they're able to narrow down what years the chewing gum was manufactured from, and then they had to search to work out any like natural disasters that could have happened in that time, which conveniently the first one they think of is the correct one. It's in 2050, some kind of like hurricane that wipes out somewhere in America. So they decide to go there, and it happens to be bang on correct. The exact place they go, that's where the variant was hiding, which is, it's somewhat unrealistic, but for the sake of the show.
And we also got the scene when Morbius explains to Loki what candy is, and then Loki's like, "Oh, I don't know what candy is. At Asgard, we're just used to like nuts and."
Yeah. Which is kind of silly because you think we're under the impression that Loki goes to Earth all the time for a bit of fun, so you think he would know what candy is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good scene. And they go see the variant, and then what do they discover with this variant whilst they're there?
Well, they actually split off in different groups because Morbius was going to take Loki, but the head time soldier basically took Loki instead, and then they found this black African American, and then we believe this is the variant, and then we found the same thing that happened in the earlier show. This variant has his powers are kind of revealed, and kind of that can basically transport mind control on other subjects.
Yeah, it seems like if he touches the person, they kind of he enters their body, and then when he touches another person, they keep transferring, and then Loki kind of asks like, "Oh, what happens to that person?" He's like, "Oh, they usually survive."
Yeah.
Like after he transports from their body or takes over it. And then Loki is kind of distracted by the variant for quite a while, and
yeah, there's like that black African American goes into the time soldier. The time soldier goes into that worker that just happened to be there. The worker goes into the buff person.
Yeah.
And then went on for quite a while.
Yeah, so it seems like it was all the time wasting things so that these bombs the variant has set up can go off.
Yeah.
What other twists? So what do we find out? Who is the variant? What do they reveal in the end?
That's actually a completely different version of Loki, and it's actually a lady.
Yeah, which I guess we'll go into in the next section, what we think our theories are around that. And this variant, I don't know, does its thing, opens a time portal and basically says, I'm out of here. And
releases all the time bombs into the time, and then we go into the section where all the analysts are, and then they say, oh, we've got a problem here, Houston, basically.
And then what? Then Loki, in typical Loki fashion, jumps in after the variant, and
Morbius says, don't do it.
Yeah, and I guess that's what the next episode's going to be about, working out whether he's done it for the right or wrong reasons, and if he's going to start working with the variant or...
Which perspective would you prefer the episode to start off with? Loki going after other Loki or seeing what that happens, or from Morbius's perspective?
I don't know. I'd like to know more about the variant itself. Like maybe the next episode we might get some kind of backstory to this variant.
Yeah, that could work. Would you like the theme of the episode about... The moral of the show is that Morbius has his opinion, Loki has his opinion, Loki, his life and his belief, he believes in free will. It's kind of the different opinions about the show, and Morbius kind of believes that your life is destined because he's been, way to think that this is how your life is set, because they had that discussion about how, even, Loki brought up, you're cool being a child, that's why I was doing it, trickster, I was basically trying to, not fool you, or...
No, I agree, I liked it. I think, I have a feeling the theme of the series is going to be around the idea of Loki always believed that he could change his destiny and that he is... meant to be the god and king of Asgard, but Thor wrongfully is going to be. So it's about like him wanting to change his future with the overall arching theme of, maybe we can't, maybe we don't have free will, maybe the time, like gods have decided what our future has to be. So that kind of that moral idea of, you change your future, like you can do it today, like some kind of inspirational thing they want to throw in there. I think in some way the show is going to flick back to maybe Morbius deciding to leave the TVA if he can and maybe finally get his jet ski.
Yeah.
I feel like they've planted that for a reason. Why else would the jet ski become important?
Yeah.
Or maybe in an episode they'll at least get to be on a jet ski in like a chase of some sort.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling it's going to end with Morbius being able to leave his job and... have some more free will and get to have his jet ski. And the show, I guess, opens up the multiverse idea. We haven't really been introduced to it. I feel like it's going to explain the Eternals maybe a bit more as well. I don't know if they have to do with time travel, but the fact that they're around for a large proportion of time after watching the trailer, that they somehow tie into the TVA in some way, or maybe I'm completely wrong about that, or it might just make their story more believable after seeing Loki, because you can see that there is time gods, so time is can be manipulated and is predictable and this and that.
And it'll be important to watch because it'll lead into Doctor Strange into the multiverse. So
what would you, before we get into some discussion points about the episode, how do you rank the episode? What is your overall verdict?
I think it ends on a cliffhanger more than episode 1, but I think episode 1 had more of a intrigue, but they were both still fine episodes, and I think episode 2 had, I guess, funny moments as well. It's very much a consistent show, but I just think episode 1 had more intrigue, but season 2 ended on a cliffhanger that when it ended, it's like, yes, I want to see the next episode.
Yeah, I think the same. I liked episode 1 more than 2. I didn't dislike 2, but 2 was kind of... I think 1, we discovered so much new stuff that it was like, oh, this is awesome. episode 2, we didn't so much discover new stuff. We seen a few things, but then it finished on a cliffhanger. So I guess always you're looking forward to the next episode, but I was more, if I was to give them a rating, I would have rated number 1 like a much higher rating. But it's hard to compare episodes. But I've after episode 1, I thought, oh, this show's, I liked it more. But it's hard to compare episodes.
Yeah, it's been very consistent, and I hope episode 3 is as good and it continues this strong start.
Okay, so what are some, moving into, I guess it's all been a bit of spoilers. You wouldn't be watching this if you hadn't seen the episode. What was your favourite part of the episode?
Probably favourite part was with the goat scene and also with the salad scene. I thought they were both excellent.
Okay, so the goat scene is when they're in Pompeii and Loki's doing his thing, being all funny, and then the salad scene, of course, as we talked. Yeah, no, I agree. I found those quite funny.
I do have a question though. Do you think the funny scenes are actually better than the action scenes? Because I think the funny scenes are actually more memorable and they don't require as much.
I agree. This show, obviously, I don't think's had many action scenes yet,
No.
or what I would consider an action scene.
Yeah,
Like
set
someone,
pieces.
someone being like knocked out. I wouldn't call that action.
Yeah,
But they, I think this show is more about the comedy and the discovering of how the time TVA works.
yeah,
And it's not meant to be action. Like Falcon and the Winter Soldier was about like fighting and action, but this isn't about this. This
No.
show could completely work with no action.
yeah,
Because in the end, it's like a cat and mouse between TVA and Loki trying to catch the other variant. So you wouldn't expect it to come down to a fight between Loki and Loki. They're tricksters. It's gonna come down to one Loki outsmarting the other Loki, really.
yeah.
So it's not going to be a brute force battle. Okay, so you tell me your favourite scene. I'll agree. I think those were the 2 funny scenes of it. What is your theory with the variant? What do you think the female variant is? What's the story behind that?
I think the female variant will find out her motives, but I think it's to do with the time gods. I think of the true villains, and I think the female variant is doing what she believes in is true, but it's not necessarily the good thing by any means. But I think the time gods are the true villains, because I think what's behind it is Kane the Conqueror, who's a MCU villain in the comics. And my theory is that Kane the Conqueror is one of the time gods, or even both, because in the comics and in the shows he actually has different versions of himself, because basically he's a character that he's in control of time. He's a conqueror. He's the most powerful character when it comes to time. So, and this show is about time. So my theory is how Loki will stay in the show is that Loki will take over the time police and he'll keep him in the show, because Kane the Conqueror is actually going to be in Ant-Man 3.
Okay. I don't know if I disagree or agree with that, because I don't know anything about Kane and the Conqueror, so I can't agree. I don't know if that sounds logical or not. It's a character I'm not familiar with. My thought is, which is probably similar to what you think, that this Loki variant is basically somewhere along the timeline things changed, and instead of a young boy getting taken in by Thor's parents, it becomes a young girl, and then Thor grows up with a sister, or maybe in this other multiverse Thor is a female, because is there a female Thor in any of the comic books? Or?
Just Jane Frost.
So there might be something like that, just to show how the multiverse works. I don't know about the the time gods being villains, because I guess if they were, they could just end time because they're that powerful, but maybe there's more to it than that. But I do believe that maybe this variant thinks that they're villains at least, and that's what she's doing is the right thing. And yeah, maybe we might discover a bit more about it in the next episode, or maybe it's going to be a twist to the end. I do think that Loki will get to stay in the timeline because he'll capture this other Loki and then they'll repay it by letting him stay. I think that's going to be the catch. And maybe he, along the way, gets to see a bit of backstory of this female Loki, and then he discovers a bit about himself, and maybe he's a bit less resentful against his parents and more forgiving of his brother, and starts to understand that he isn't the rightful king of Asgard like he continually believed. My next question for you is, what do you think is going to happen with Loki jumping through the portal following the variant?
I guess he kind of can find out what the variant is up to and try and join forces. Kind of, you know, he's a mysterious person, so I guess he could be doing it, but trying to get intel. But the other variant would know that, so it's kind of a cat and mouse of mind tricks.
I reckon. I don't know. I don't know if I reckon Loki's jumped in there for the wrong reasons because he's just a schemer.
Yeah.
And I think that the next episode is going to be some kind of backstory to this variant, or maybe the variant shows Loki like her existence or her timeline and where she fits into it, and then in some way Loki goes back to help the TVA, but they're just like, oh, you backstabbed us again, and he's got to prove to them that no, actually I'm on your side, somewhere along those lines. But I'm hoping for some kind of backstory for the next episode for the variant.
And I guess where do you see the basically time resulting kind of bombs going into it? Do you think, would you like to find out her reasons for that, or?
Oh, definitely. I think that makes most sense what the next episode will be about.
A backstory,
yeah. Yeah, backstory and an understanding of what they're doing. I think I might actually rewatch the last episode just to pick up on, see if there's any subtle clues or anything that I didn't see first time around. And especially after having this discussion, there's things that I'm going to be looking for this time around. So, yeah, I think I'll watch it again to try and get a better idea about what the next episode might entail. What other discussion points can you think of?
I guess, do you see Morbius kind of forgiving Loki, or because he basically said, I'll do the deed myself, so something must happen, so he doesn't do it, because that was kind of the deal between him and...
Oh, I think inevitably Mobius will end up forgiving Loki, and I can't see any other option than Loki helping the TVA, because they can just annihilate him.
Yeah.
I'd like to know how this new variant's so powerful, how the original Loki, even with a Tesseract, couldn't escape the TVA, but this one could. But maybe that's just because Loki didn't know who they were, so he wasn't scared of something that he didn't know was powerful, so they were able to get him when he wasn't expecting it. I can't really think of any other discussion points for the episode. We've recapped it and gone over the major talking points, unless there's any other itching questions you have.
I guess, which character you're most intrigued to learn about or hope gets the most development? I would assume it's the Loki variant.
Yeah, I'd say so now, because we know enough about the current Loki.
Yeah.
Morbius, I don't think there is anything to really know about Morbius. I don't think he understands what he is, and with the TVA, maybe he was just created and he is that age and is always going to be that age.
Yeah, just bred to serve.
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to know more about that, but I don't know if there's a backstory in it for Mobius.
that's why I think the theory that I have, the twist that they're being bred as slaves and then kind of realizing that we've been basically wasting our lives.
Yeah, so I guess I'd like to know more about the variant, and it's inevitable, it has to happen, otherwise the show won't make sense.
And you kind of see, because I don't know if you remember, but the scene that we actually see the commander again, she's not under the variant's control, and she actually says, "Oh, I gave the locations of the gods."
Yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, that variant is gone seeking the gods. See, they're probably the characters I want to know more about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's obviously going to be some big reveal. So, yeah. The Marvel Universe is complex. You've got the Asgardian so-called gods. We have celestial gods like Star-Lord, before he gave up his powers, and his father. And then we've got someone like Thanos, who came from a large planet of other people like him, yet he's strong enough to wipe out half the galaxy. And then we have these time gods. Like, there's just so many levels of power. And then where does the Eternals throw into it? Like, yeah, it's confusing to know who actually is the most powerful beings, and what we've seen so far of these time gods. It makes sense if they are the most powerful beings and everyone else is just kind of irrelevant. Like, they think they're powerful, but their future's already predicted for them, and even if they do destroy half the universe, the time gods know that there was only going to be erased anyway. So yeah, I kind of hope they are good guys and they are powerful, because otherwise no one's going to be able to fight them.
So you're looking forward to episode 3?
Yeah, of course. I'm not going to not watch it. We've only episode 3, or we're halfway there once we've finished it. So I think we should know a lot more about the series and start to get a picture of how it could end and what to expect based on that. Because if at the halfway point you haven't worked that out, then we're in for some heavily contented last few episodes.
Do you like the amount of how long the episodes are going for? 50 minutes?
Yeah, it's a good length. I think it's a great length. It's long enough that you get what you want out of it, but not so long that you become bored.
Well, thank you for helping out. Hope you enjoy episode 3.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for watching the video. Hope you're enjoying the show so far. Like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye bye.